Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode for the GamersWeCare podcast. Tonight, we have the amazing Flakfire here. Flakfire, welcome so much. Thank you for joining
Oh,
us tonight.
thank you for having me.
Let me see if we already have people here in the chat first. Why don't I see them? No, there we go. Cylon is already here. What's going on here? I didn't even check. So many people are waiting here. Guys, how you doing tonight? I didn't even look in there before. I was expecting like 3 or 5 people waiting here. That's it. Amazing, guys. Thank you
Hey,
so much for showing
almost at
up.
40 people. That's a lot of people.
Actually, yeah. How you doing? I hope you guys are ready for tonight because we are about to do a little, well, question and gaming questions night. What we did is we prepared with the community basically together tonight a bunch of questions, and they are very, very, very different from each other. So we will switch about topics 20 times tonight. Are you ready for that, Flagfire? Are you ready to jump on this journey?
I've got my coffee. I'm ready.
Oh, that's so good. All right, where does your passion for history come from?
Oh, passion for history. Okay.
Hmm.
That's a tough question to answer, actually. So I was somebody who, growing up, I always had an interest in reading. So reading to me was something really, really important. Um, I kind of had a unique upbringing in some ways where my father worked in the military industry. Specifically, he worked for aircraft manufacturers. So he was involved in a lot of different programs, like the F-18 small cruise missile projects. Like he was pretty cool dude in that regard. But so a lot of that military stuff was kind of around me all the time, if it makes sense. He was also
Hmm.
a former Marine. Um, so every year through his work we were able to go to an air show, or we'd get to go to tour the factory and you could see how things were made, or you go to the air show and you would see some of these really cool classic airplanes, airplanes.
Hmm.
you know my online persona isn't just oh, I picked the name because it sounds cool. Like, I have an interest in aviation and that kind of stuff. So being around that, a lot of the time you just kind of gravitate towards it. If you're reading books, then you're reading books about airplanes, then you're like, okay, I feel like I've learned a lot about this topic. Now I want to move on to that topic.
Hmm.
And so I kind of just explored different areas over the course of my life. And talking about battlefield stuff, a couple of years prior to Battlefield 1 being announced and released, I had really uh, dug into World War One and fell in love with the time period. And I think a lot of the personal stories that the people that experienced that time period had, the challenges, both from a psychological standpoint and a industrial mechanical side of things. That's just always fascinating to me. I'm somebody who's easily fascinated by things, and I think that played a big part in history gripping me, because for me it was always easy to draw comparisons or connections between what happened in the past to what's happening today, or how we got from point A to point B. And in a lot of ways, I think it's especially important to predict where we're going in the future, where point C is. And preparation, I think, is important in that as well. But so military stuff has always been fascinated by it, always been around it. Um, History in general, that kind of stuff. And it doesn't necessarily have to be military oriented stuff. A lot of it is, just how things came to be the way they are. It was very helpful in me understanding, um, the world around me. And
Hmm.
for that reason, it is definitely kind of an addictive thing.
Have you ever heard of Isaac Asimov, the
Uh,
author?
I I know the name. I don't know specifically what he wrote.
Okay. I think it would be interesting for you just from a perspective because you say you're so interested in history and like how does it repeat itself, right?
Hmm.
like where are the correlations, I guess this is what you're looking at, like what happens when and why, and you know and obviously, I mean, history can repeat itself. So what he did is he invented he invented what is it called, like a mixture between historic and psychological analysis of history itself, just seeing like where the numbers and where it is repeating itself.
Hmm.
You can read it in the foundation trilogy, but never mind. I found it very interesting. So I just thought when you said it, like, yeah, I mean, I can see that. Yeah, like I can see that it's very interesting to see like what happened, and how did it happen? What leads to the next thing? Um, is there like any history writes anyone you look up to? You say like this person inspired you in a way?
That's a tough question to answer. Certainly, there are people now, that I will watch on a regular basis. I have a special fondness for Ian from Forgotten Weapons. He approaches history uh, in a way by looking at the mechanical aspects of weaponry. And when you dig into that, you discover that, a lot of these things are born out of situations. It's not just somebody decided, oh, I'm going to go make this kind of gun. No, it's based off of the experiences, the realities of how things were on the front lines, or the feedback that they received from generals, or, if we talk about World War II, as he often does, the limitations involving supplies and manufacturing capabilities. All of those things factor into the end design, and it's fascinating to go and like reverse engineer that. Ian does that very, very well. You look at some of the other channels, um, the Great War Channel, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
on there. Time Ghost is now doing World War II. Those are all available. You can find them on YouTube. I think they're wonderful. They take a lot of material, and one of the great things about the era that we live in, where people are able, anybody can put together media, and anybody can create something and
Yeah.
explain it in their way, or take a really complex, difficult to approach topic, and create visual audio aids that go along with it to explain the realities of the time in a way that nobody's really ever done before,
Mm-hmm.
and that's wonderful. In terms of any writers or anything, when I was growing up, I read a lot of Ernie Pyle, Ernest Hemingway,
Mm-hmm.
all those kinds of more classic books from those conflicts were very, very interesting uh, to me.
How much do you read, like currently? Like one, two, three books a month?
I would say maybe one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I uh,
I,
with
I can I can
how
I can see in your face you're probably thinking right now about 5 books, but you're saying like you're probably reading ahead multiple books. You're not reading only one, right?
I will typically only read, one at a time. I'll focus on one.
Focus.
I'm somebody, however, that I nibble a lot from different places.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily just read one book,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, what I often find myself doing, and again, talking about the era in which we live, going to, Wikipedia. A lot of people are like, oh, Wikipedia, anybody can edit that. And that's true. But what Wikipedia is most useful for is uncovering primary sources. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I'll read an article on Wikipedia. I'll be like, wow, what is that about? And I'll go find where that, quote, or that, footnote about this person's life came from. And I will go out and buy that book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll read that book. Um, and um, BH Little Hart, he's got some issues as an author, but he was one of those people that I discovered from that process, and I've read a lot of his books. Uh, I think he did particularly well with the Rommel Diaries, which was just a fascinating aspect of history. You get his personal, or the Rommel Papers. You get his personal viewpoint on a lot of things Um, and it's fascinating. It's
Mhm.
stuff that you don't find other places. You won't find that on Wikipedia. You'll find a footnote about it, but if you really want to dig into the material, that's a good way to go and find uh, people or places or events or things to explore like that. I can't say that I read a great many books at one time. Um, I like, things that can point me to other things. So other books that are, like shorter, that are, summations of, a battle or something like that. There are a number of companies that make, kind of little periodical books about different battles or uniforms or vehicles or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and they're great little either refreshers or, they'll pique your interest on something else and you can go check that out. There's a lot of different things.
I think it explains kind of how your videos work. Like you have a specific eye for detail, and for me it always felt like you did a lot of research, like in many areas, and then
Yeah.
so
On a video, if it's a longer, more in-depth one, something like that, you may assume, oh, this video took 8 hours to make, and it's like, no, I
like
have
three
been,
weeks.
yeah, I mean, weeks at a time
Yeah,
sometimes,
I
because
know,
I'll
I
really
know.
dig into what the topic is, and then I kind of use my background. Some of you may know I was formerly a radio news reporter, and one of the most important things that we do in that regard is break information down to its, most basic without changing the inherent narrative in that. So I'm trying to break down a lot of information, boil it down to just what you need to know in a way that is uh, true and representative of, the original author or the original narrative. So um, yeah, on some videos, like they might only be 8 minutes long, and that's representative of like 3 weeks of work and research, So, and it's something that the the YouTube videos that I do, maybe aren't the most popular as some of the other videos out there, um, and certainly not the most profitable. But I do it because I enjoy doing it.
That's actually a good point there. I wanted to ask a question like that before. Like, what is your motive? Like, do you say like you're not wanting? Obviously, you're not wanting by numbers. You want to do something where you feel that's you at the end, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I have the privilege of only doing what I really want to do. I mean, for the most part, I don't depend on YouTube as my uh, living salary. It's the money that I will make on the side from that is a nice little bonus. It lets me, oh, okay, I get to buy a
Mm.
winter coat this year. Like,
Maybe.
yay. I can buy food,
Mm.
that
Big
kind of
one.
stuff. Yeah, but
Well,
it's
but explain maybe quick for those who maybe do not know in here what you're doing for. Yeah, what's your first job?
So my first job, I teach at a state university. So I teach audio and video production.
So, and I said before, this explains a lot where the professionalism in your case comes from with the voice and everything. And you said, does it? Why? Why wouldn't it? I mean, isn't it like for me? It's like obviously, but obvious. But for you, it's I mean, it's your perspective and my perspective. So,
Mhm.
what's yours on that?
Can you kind of
Like,
repeat the question?
I think like there's definitely connection with your first job and your second job. Like if
Mhm.
content creation is your second job.
Yeah. So one of the primary reasons that I started doing YouTube in the first place was because I had a different job. I was working at a university and I was teaching as adjunct faculty, but I was primarily
Mhm.
running a film and equipment lab. So students would come to me to borrow gear to complete their projects. And they would ask questions about how do I do this? How do I do that? They would
Mhm.
want me to take a look at it and explain to them what they should do different, what I would improve upon, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and so I had really shifted from, being a news reporter, going out and making video I know I was a radio news reporter, did video as well. Um, that was pretty cool to be able to do that as a radio person. But um, I was shifting from somebody who was making content to somebody who wasn't. And media production is something where if you don't do it all the time, your skills atrophy. You
Very true.
forget how to do things. You slow down.
Mm-hmm.
You're not able to complete things as fast as you would otherwise. And students would come to me, and 3 years into this job, where I hadn't really been making things, they'd say, "How do I do this?" Um, and I remember one time I told a student, I'm like, "Well, I used to know," and I thought that was a really crappy answer. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, man, that's not at the level that I want to be at. Like I'm not ready to, check out for media creation or something like that. It really struck home of like, man, um, in my job, I really need to make sure that I know the answers to these kinds of things because I want to be helpful. I want to help
Mm-hmm.
somebody learn how to do things.
When was that? When was that? Like 2007,
20,
8,
2016
2016?
was when I started the channel. So it would have been a little bit before that, but um, I thought that was a crappy answer. So I decided, okay, I'm going to make a YouTube channel. I'll just do a video every week.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be whatever that I'm playing. I'm not really doing this for anybody except for myself. Like I'll do tutorials and, kind of problem solve. I want to be that person. If somebody has a question about things, can I answer it?
Mm-hmm.
So I started with Fallout 4. I
Mm-hmm.
think was some of the first videos that I did, and they were little tips and tricks kind of videos. And I dabbled in Battlefield a little bit because I was playing it. I've been a fan of Battlefield since Battlefield 1942 on the PC. And when Battlefield 1 rolled around, I was like, hey, I know a lot about this history stuff. Let's try and break down everything that we saw in that trailer. And over the course of like 3 days, I gained like 30,000 subscribers from that one video. I'm like, I guess I'm a YouTube person now, and this is what I do. And I just kind of never really looked back with it. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
That's interesting. Like I didn't even know that this was the beginning. How did you come up with the name Flakfire?
That has been my Xbox gamer tag for I think about 15 or 16 years.
Okay.
So that predated YouTube by quite a while. And I think if you want to get really technical, it was the first name of my character in Knights of the Old Republic. That was
No
the
idea
character
what
that
that
I
is.
made. It's an RPG. It's a Star Wars
Okay.
RPG.
Oh, damn it. I'm really bad at that. I shouldn't have said that. Now it's out. You know what? Let's switch it up again. Give me a number. We
Um,
probably had two, three in
one,
between. One. We had number one. Go for number whatever.
two.
Do you have a morning routine?
Do I have a what?
A morning routine. Like, do you
A
do?
morning routine.
Yeah, do you have a morning
Um,
routine?
I roll out of bed. I find
That's a
some
good one.
coffee, and then I figure out what I'm going to do for the day. That is that is about my morning routine. Um, Most of the time, I'm awoken by my daughter who comes in and rolls all over the bed to wake me up. Which I mean, there are worse ways to be woken up, so I guess that's okay. But coffee is the most important part of the morning routine.
Yeah, we share this morning. We share this morning totally. Coffee, nothing goes before, at least for me. All right, let's switch to another number between 3 and 37.
12.
12, thank you. Oh, this question is from Catalyst. So serious. Where were you first inspired to be a content creator? I
I
think we
think we
have
kind of
that. We had
yeah
that.
we kind of hit on that a little
We
bit.
had that. We had that. Sorry, next one. I think we're getting through this. We already had another
Uh,
one, I see.
I say just go in order. Just pick
Yeah,
three and
yeah.
let's run down the
Yeah, let's
list.
run this down. Um, what are you grateful for this year?
What am I grateful for this year? That is a wonderful question
Mm-hmm.
because everything going on in 2020. where it's
Hmm.
just a complete shit show. Um,
Yeah, unfortunately.
it's good to stop and think about that and think about, wow, what am I grateful for? And there's so much, and I think it's very important that you make a conscious effort to actually say that, okay, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful that I have a wonderful family. I'm so happy that I have a happy and healthy 2 year old, uh, and very smart 2 year old. Um, I'm thrilled that, we found another kitten, that brings me joy on a regular basis. I'm
Hmm.
also very happy that we bought an espresso machine, which also brings me joy on a regular basis. There have been a number of videos that were a lot of fun to do. Um, Before things went crazy, I did get to travel for a couple of things, and that was a lot of fun. I'm happy that in large my family is healthy. So uh, I haven't had any major problems at work. I'm excited to look forward to the next semester. I will get to teach a class actually next semester, seminar class on YouTube, and kind of self-publishing. So I'm thrilled to be doing that. I taught that previously at a different university, and we had to raise the class cap twice, because so many people wanted to take it. So it's kind of like my opportunity to try to convince, the department that, hey, we need to do more with this because so many students are coming into a radio and television program. I say, why are you here? And they're like, well, I don't want to do radio and television. I want to do YouTube. I want to do content creation. I want to do streaming, all of that kind of stuff. And most universities don't have any kind of program to cater to that. So I'm excited about that. That's all of what I'm thankful for this year that I can think of off the top of my head.
No, that's great. That's great. And also chat in here. Like always, I didn't say it in the beginning, I forgot. Like every question we have, like if you have questions you want to answer here in chat, like this one, what are you grateful for? Just keep the messages. Keep messaging us. Let us know what you think, what's on your mind. Also, if you have a question here for Flakfire, just put it in the chat and I have an eye on it. I had one question now which came up here because you said, what are you excited for? So, do you think your career as a content creator has prepared you for virtual learning? Like, what everything you have right now as an experience on top helps you?
I mean, I think it's something that certainly helps me with teaching. Absolutely. And certainly my background in, media production, news reporting, that kind of stuff has
Hmm.
always, been beneficial in that regard. Um, it's interesting. A lot of people don't view that kind of stuff as a skill, and I'm somebody who does, quite heavily produced videos, and I still have immense respect for people who do streaming. I look at 'em like that's work that's difficult too, to be able to sit down and continuously interact, and even physically to talk for that long can
Hmm.
be exhausting if you're not physically prepared for it. So I think I'm very fortunate in that regard, where kind of everything kind of reinforces itself, where my job helps me, do uh, content creation better and vice versa, and I'm not sure what else I can add to
No,
that.
no, I see that. I was just waiting, like maybe something else comes up. No, I really like that. I think it's also this constant way of growing, like the
Hmm.
opportunity that you can grow and learn from every aspect of your life and bring everything together.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. That's, talking about things that, kind of inspire content creation or whatever. Um, and, why I was so interested in history, it's something that it's like you have a new chance every day to learn something, and in my opinion, if you're not learning something every day, like what are you doing? Like it doesn't
mhm.
have to be history related, it
No.
can be, oh, I learned how to make gingerbread cookies with my kid, or something
Hmm.
like that, where it's just like, I learned something new today. And when I learn something, I feel good about it. Um, so yeah, and talking about like rules to live by, learn something new every single day. Doesn't matter what it is, but you better be learning something. Otherwise, in my opinion, you wasted that day.
Reminds me, I have a question because I asked this question because I had the experience in my life with my kids. What did you learn from your daughter? What was the first, or maybe what was the first thing where you had this moment? I learned something from her.
Is it weird to say it's tough because I've learned so much? Like,
No, I,
there's
I
there's
feel you. I
something
feel you.
there's something that you learn every single time that you interact with your kid, whether it's one thing or another. You certainly learn humility. You learn, wow, I shouldn't be so quick to judge people.
Hmm.
You realize that, man, kids are better than you in a lot of ways. She's just so, uh, and you don't want to say naive, but it's just like she doesn't have that filter or that,
They are not
suspicion.
judgmental.
Yeah.
We are so much more
Um,
judgmental. Like,
and it's lovely to see. And actually, talking about this, I think one of the things that struck me the most, playing with her was her playing with bubbles. Like, she loves bubbles. And one day I was sitting there, I'm like,
Sure.
when did bubbles stop being fun? And I had that conversation with myself. I was like, why did I stop thinking this was fun? And it was just awesome to see her enjoying that so much. And it really makes you try and appreciate the other things that you have in your life a little bit more.
absolutely. I also like, for me, it started right after birth, actually, for my first kid. Basically, just, that I learned the interaction between what she needs, what I
Mhm.
need. And since she was born, like every day I have these moments of, yeah, I learned something, if it's only something about myself. That's also for me learning,
Mhm.
just their interaction. Um, do you, wait. Maybe I would just put this question in here because it's the same topic. Like, do you see in your daughter sometimes yourself, like
Oh, yes.
characterize? And
Yes.
where do you see yourself the most in her?
Uh, she wants to learn everything all the time. Like, and, that comes with some of the trade-offs of my personality, which is, I tend to be a little bit unfocused sometimes. I'll bounce from one thing to another.
Hmm.
Um, it's hard for me to get to sleep sometimes because I'll be thinking about something. She has serious FOMO, so, she doesn't want to miss out on anything. Um, and it's wonderful, but she is absolutely a handful.
Hmm.
She's very, very energetic, which
So
certainly mirrored me as a kid, I'm told.
that's what I say. It's, so you're saying you're a handful now, but I guess you grow up now. It's a bit better. All right. What's the most boring thing about battle royales for you?
The most boring thing about battle royales,
Actually,
I've actually probably put a lot more thought into that than, I don't know, you might think that I have. Battle royales for me, I think the most annoying part of them, the most boring part is the waiting. It's something that, whether that is waiting between spawns, whether that's waiting, for the circle to close. I don't like the waiting.
mhm.
I really, really dislike that. It's one of the reasons that I much preferred. We'll talk about Call of Duty for a minute. Um, Warzone's plunder mode, where it's like you die and you can just hop right back into it. I found that much more enjoyable, but that it also has its own interesting trade-offs that developers have to kind of wrestle with. But for me, waiting.
Mm, was the waiting a battlefield for your problem? I don't know why, but I was just thinking that, like these epic loading screens.
Eh, I did buy the Xbox One X because I got tired of waiting so long in the in the loading screens. I was like, yeah, $400 for a shorter loading screen. Pay it gladly. No,
Did it
that
pay
part's
out?
not as bad.
Did it
Once
pay out?
once you're in there in the game and you're playing it, you know, I like, oh, I died. Well, I can just respawn and you know, let me approach this situation from a different perspective, different angle, find a way to solve the problem that hasn't worked for me the last two times. You know,
Mm-hmm.
trying to trying to attack this objective from a different angle. Um, so you know that's why I like Battlefield and a lot of FPS games is because they're very you know fast paced of just okay let's go,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that keeps the interest to me up.
Yeah, I'm not very patient when it comes down to that as well. Um, I think you're right now preparing a video like what's your vision on Battlefield 6, but DICE will never do it or something like that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Can I ask you like what's because I wanted to ask that anyways, and then I saw you were making a video about it, so I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I actually wanted to ask what's your personal vision? Like what is a how would you see it? What do you want to see?
You know, I think that's actually different from that uh, video topic per se, but I'll talk about that video topic in general because I think that it would be a wonderful opportunity for them to explore some really fascinating stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically looking at okay, what should Battlefield do, but they totally won't. I have a real fascination with the interwar years and specifically prohibition. And so, talking about the 1920s and the 1930s, looking at you know the idea of there being you know rum runners and the mob, and you know this whole showdown between them and law enforcement, and you know I think there's this real idea that in some ways, it doesn't represent Battlefield, and certainly people made that argument with Hardline, which remains controversial to this day because you're talking about kind of this cops and robbers kind of scenario, which, given the current political climate, you know, I don't think we'll ever get Hardline 2, just because you know socially things have changed quite a bit, politically things have changed quite a bit, but you look at something like the Prohibition era, you know, that is a bygone time. You know, you can't really reinterpret those events in um, ways that were necessarily different, at least not without, you know, significant pushback as we saw in Battlefield 5, right? But looking at that era in time, I think that there's great opportunity to explore a very fascinating aspect of history that everybody has an interest in. You know, even people in Europe have an interest in, like, you know, with the mob in the United States and prohibition and this outlaw time period because it's something
Mm-hmm.
that everybody can kind of relate to no matter where you are, or something about it draws you in, whether you want to be that kind of rebellious person or you more identify with, I want to uphold the law, right? There's some of that there, but I've done you know quite a bit of research into it. Again, this is why it takes me so so long to do things. But looking into that time period and could a Battlefield game work in that time period, and I think that there's just tremendous opportunity for things for you to pull from a lot of different aspects of history and to put it all together in one game. So talking about the mafia, talking about rum running, talking about things like Bonnie and Clyde, other kinds of gang warfare, talking about the formation of you know some of these federal organizations to address those issues, talking
Mm-hmm.
about you know
I can see
Texas
that.
Rangers and you know all of these things. There's plenty of opportunity there, and again you might say, well, it didn't really fit Battlefield. How are you going to work tanks into this? How are you going to work airplanes into this? And I actually I did some research and I found out that it was literally, and this is kind of the guiding thing that I feel like should govern that kind of game. The idea of something falling off a truck.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the phrase that they use. Oh, that fell off the truck. Is how somebody obtained illegal weapons. You're talking about gangsters with ridiculous amounts of money who can literally procure whatever they want. When I looked into it and I found instances where uh, former army tanks from World War One were sold to people. There was an instance where a gang in Southern Illinois, of all places, used an airplane and actually bombed a rival gang by dropping dynamite out of the airplane. And this is like in the 20s, like in the United States. And it's like you'd never hear about that unless you had had really dug into that. And it's one of those things that I look at that
What
time
do you
period.
use for your research? Like, where do you find these things?
Like I mentioned, you look at Wikipedia and you find those primary sources and then you explore those.
Right.
And it's I've had so many instances where that little tidbit that I found on Wikipedia was like the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go find the book and you're like, there's way more cooler stuff in this book than that. Why didn't you put that on Wikipedia?
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally I'll go in there and I'll edit that and I'll put it in there. As a little contribution. But um, looking at that, and some of you in the chat may say, I really don't see that time period working. I want you to stop and think about that sentence. I don't see that time period working, and realize that that was the primary argument against Battlefield 1 as
Mm-hmm.
well. People said, I just don't see how that could work. DICE
Sorry.
made it work. It was not historically accurate in most aspects, but it was an exploration of that time period that people really wanted to go and check out. And I think there's the potential for that here with this. And in my ideal version, it kind of eases you into that time frame by tying into parts of World War One. So you have some maps that are actually set in World War One. You have some World War One weapons, but it's kind of a lead in back to the States, back to the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, all of these things that lead into that. Uh, and so you get to dabble in all of these kind of different areas, and it's all kind of strung together by, in my idea, an interesting narrative. I still like the idea of single player being an important part of the Battlefield franchise, but looking at it, you might say it just doesn't work, and that's perfectly fine. Wait until I eventually get around to getting this video together, and maybe I can convince you that it's a good idea.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, for the next Battlefield, probably not.
no, but
It's too
and
late.
again,
But
looking at
yeah,
it,
longer term.
longer term, I think that's a good
Yeah.
option. I think another thing that I'd really like to see is Korea, because again, that interwar period and looking at Korea, those are two things that have never really been explored
Like a
in
Bad Company
major.
2 career thing, or
Not necessarily. I really like the idea of Korea if you were to explore that conflict from both sides.
mm-hmm.
Um, I think that would be a real interesting way to do that. But both of those, this interwar and this Korea time period, are unknowns to
Mm-hmm.
people. And you look at what made Battlefield 1 successful, it was unknown. You look at what made Battlefield 5 not successful, uh, it's the fact that everybody's an expert on World War II, or at least they think they are, right? I can't tell you how many times I would see, there were no British at Rotterdam, which is factually incorrect. There were.
Mm-hmm.
I know because I did the research, but, never
Mm-hmm.
mind. Um, People have strong opinions on things. People have uh, they cling very tightly to these beliefs, that they've been told over the years. Um, and if you challenge those beliefs, you better be prepared to back them up or to face the backlash or whatever. And I think that was a kind of a miscalculation on Battlefield 5's part. But you look at Battlefield 1, not as many people got upset over the historical inaccuracies because they didn't have those opinions really readily formed. Um, and so I think, Korea, or that interwar time period, kind of represents again that golden opportunity of like, there's a place for a Battlefield game in those time periods. And if you do it right, it could be just as successful as Battlefield 1 because people want to explore it. I
Mm-hmm.
think talking about um, educational things or learning things on a regular basis, I think not including a codex in Battlefield 5 was a major misstep. So if you were to explore, the inner war of Korea, you'd have to have that there. I really love side bit here that the new Medal of Honor game, like they actually did like little mini
Mm-hmm.
documentaries talking to actual veterans and whatever. Um, that's fantastic. That should be in every game. Every historical game. I played a game growing up when I was
Mm.
younger. It was Jane's World War II Fighters, and it had little documentary videos and readings in there. And I'd log onto the game just to read those and watch those videos. I wouldn't even play the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just be like, I'm going
I
to the
didn't even know
museum
that.
section, and I'm going to
Yeah.
check this out. And I think that there's a tremendous amount of people who really appreciate that. And if you back that up uh, in the game. If you have a interwar period and somebody's like, planes dropping bombs in the United States isn't really realistic. It's like, hey, it did happen. Here's when it happened. Here's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You learned something new today. This is our precedent for including this in the game. Um, and I think you kind of give people an inside view into that development process. And if they can sympathize or they can understand where you're coming from, I think their reactions to things tend to be much less hostile um, when we look at, again, those beliefs that they hold really close to them if they have those. So that's where I'm at with it. Wait for the video to come out. I'll see if I can convince you, but um,
Definitely looking forward to see that, guys.
I'm
So
I'm
just
I'm certain
yeah.
that the people who loved Hardline will like it, but it'll be something, how do you convince the other hardcore Battlefield fans that oh, this is going to be a good opportunity. And that's, again, I think my consolation prize with that is to tie into World War One. And like, okay, we're going back to World War One. Here's some other major places that,
Mm-hmm.
the Lost Battalion, or we'll really get into Argonne or the Somme or something like that, some blockbuster thing that'll pull people in just because they want to experience that again, and then they get the ride of their life with the rest of the game, the rest of the stories.
I think definitely sounds interesting. I mean, it doesn't sound for me, it doesn't sound like a classical Battlefield game, so to speak, more like like you said, like Hardlines type of. So what is it then? Is it like a sequel?
I think
Uh,
there's a few things that define Battlefield games. I think for Hardline, uh, vehicle gameplay was really important. They didn't focus fast vehicle
mhm.
gameplay. They didn't focus on, like armored
Yeah,
combat
yeah.
or that kind of stuff. I think you'll have a lot of that in that kind of game.
Hmm.
But again, I think if you kind of split things between World War II, or I think there's even a chance you can tie it into the Spanish Civil War. I don't want to give away too much from that video, but um, there's opportunities for you to kind of add some wiggle room in there. Because we look at what DICE did in the past, Battlefield 1, that's supposed to be World War One oriented. They went into the Russian Civil War in one of the expansions. And that was just like, wow, I did not see that coming.
Hmm.
I thought we were just going to explore this, so there's a great opportunity to really, explore time periods where you couldn't make a whole Battlefield game about it, but between all of these different things, you might be able to put something together that's, a really wide spanning thing, and it could be a lot of fun. There's a lot of issues to work through in the development process, but uh, eh, video games are supposed to be fun. And at bottom line, I look at it, I'm like, I want to play that game.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, same thing again to your content creation. You want to watch it at the end, right?
Yeah.
So trying to put in your best. Do you think like because you said before, like they could improve so much more when it comes down to content creation by themselves, like giving you documentaries and stuff like that. So doesn't it make sense for them really to, especially now with Battlefield 6, they are already, I feel nobody's saying anything right now. They will probably wait till spring till they, give us
Hmm.
more news. But I was thinking, like, why don't they really just, have a production team who's just shooting short documentaries about how they, what are they doing? How are they doing stuff? And I know they can't talk about certain stuff, but I don't know. I feel if they would switch some things up about the communication, and let people be more involved, it would help, you know?
I agree. I certainly think EA could do a better job of that. I think they did do it to some extent with the dev talks that we saw with Battlefield 5. I know a lot of people who really like that. They love kind of looking behind the curtain of things. I know that they do some internal videos. I've seen some of those, and some of them did appear on the Dev Talks thing. Um, but I look at it from the point of view of just like anything you can do to make the developers seem more human, I think is a really, really important thing. Not only for their mental health, but for their interaction with the community. I think that's very important because it's so easy for somebody, to get online and make death threats about something that they don't like in the game, um, and not view a developer as a person or
Did you
not view.
did you ever get a death threat from anyone about your content?
Um, I mean, I have, but it's not really anything discernible from like, oh, I really didn't like this, and that's what it is. I mean, the internet's just a weird place. Um,
I heard.
but there are people out there who react that way,
Hmm.
um, and I think part of that is kind of a self-imposed thing on the part of EA, where they're very kind of coached on, okay, uh, we're gonna only put out so much communication on this or that or whatever. I think it would be really, really nice to see those kinds of internal things where it's just like, hey, I want to see how the sound crew went out and filmed all the gun sounds for the game, and we see them using the actual weapons that appear in the game, and you realize, wow, they really put a lot of effort into making these things accurate. There's an incredible thing with the Pacific expansion, and it's like I don't really remember seeing this talked about on a lot of the main Battlefield channels, but they went out and they found like the last Japanese Zero flying with the original engine configuration,
For
and
real.
they recorded it. So you're talking about the last one left in existence. They went out, they found that, they got it recorded, and they did a little mini doc for internal purposes, and like I want to see more of that content. Like, let me see that.
Hmm.
If eventually we do get a Battlefield game set in Korea, like show us the interviews with veterans if you went out to get those.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about it. Same thing if they did something in Vietnam. There's a reason why documentaries like Ken Burns' Vietnam are fantastic. It's because you get the personal interactions with those people. You get the raw feelings, the raw emotions, and you get that presented along with, what happened historically. So again, I think Battlefield EA could do a much better job of that. I don't know if they really have the resources to do it, but you're talking about EA. I'm sure if they wanted to do something, they could find the money to, be able to do it. And I think that it would be good positive PR for the company, and also really interest, I think, more people in getting involved with the franchise, or certainly feeling like they have a personal connection. I think that's important to garnering goodwill, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff goes into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything, it's very complex at the end. Like, if I just was thinking about Cyberpunk, if you look what kind of campaign they did over the last, I mean, it was kind of a hype, for like, when did they start? Like 2 years ago? I mean, like bringing
Cyberpunk
up the hype,
was, oh, yeah, probably about 2 years ago.
yeah,
It's
two
like they,
years
they
ago, right?
announced it in 2012. If
2012.
you want to go back that far, yes, I've been looking forward to that game for 8 years, so um, I'm excited about it. But yeah, no, there's
How many hours did you play it?
I actually haven't played that much in it. I have not encountered a lot of game-breaking bugs or anything like that. I've just been playing Fallout 76 um, a lot lately because I've been playing it with one of my friends, and so it's fun to go
Mhm.
through and do that. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of things that you can kind of take away from how other companies handle, PR crises or how they present themselves to the public. Um, yeah, there's some of them that do it really really well, and other ones that have some issues.
I mean, right now I feel like also we are kind of in a time for change when it comes down to development companies. Lots of stuff is going on right now in the background. Um, if you look at Ubisoft, for example, what happens the last month. So
Yeah.
I I don't know. I kind of always try to see in whatever happens right now, so history wise, that it happens for a reason. So we have a change again. So it has to hurt a little bit, and then
Hmm.
it gets better, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. um, oh, let me have a look. Let me have a look. What didn't we ask yet? Yeah. By the way, are you playing Cyberpunk on Xbox?
Yes.
And you're not. Well, how about the quality right now for you there? Or is it?
Uh,
It's a new Xbox, right?
yeah, it's a One X, so it's not the Series X. It's not like the refrigerator looking one. It's, I guess, the second gen of the Xbox One, and it looks good to me. I don't really have any problems that other people are experiencing. Um,
Hmm.
so that's where I'm at with that. I see Sawtooth in the chat says, I think they should focus on entertainment and not edutainment. I think that, that's fine. But you
I saw this,
cannot
by the way.
convince me that the backlash from Battlefield 5 would have been worse had they included like a codex, or I asked them, during development, I think I said, it'd be real nice if we get a little bit about what actually happened.
Hmm.
So if you want to tell your story, fine. If we talk about Norlease and the idea of this teenager going to this heavy water plant, blowing it up. The Norwegian resistance did some incredible things, and women in the Norwegian resistance did some incredible things. Like, I can see that that's what they wanted to kind of pull from and use to inspire that, and that's fine. But it's one thing that I'm like, it'd be great, like, after you complete the story, and it's like, and here's what actually happened. And they have a little 3-minute video or something like that. It's not incredibly difficult to do that. um, and I think that that would have,
I have a stupid question.
calmed a lot of people who
I
were
have,
upset about things.
sorry, I have a stupid question because we are talking so much about details. Do you really
Mhm.
think like this amount of details, which like historical wise, this, I mean, how important is it? So Battlefield 5 is really great or is not great at the end, Because I feel like it doesn't really matter if they're historical wise on the right side. At the end, we are playing a game. Um,
Well, you are kind of there's two camps when it comes to that. Really, right? It's like, this
mhm,
has to be exactly historically accurate, or it's a video game. And I think anybody who is, you know, particularly logical is going to look at it and say, dude, it's a video game.
mhm.
Um, like, do I wish things
You
were
enjoy
done
or you don't.
differently? Do I realize that, that isn't exactly what happened? It's like, yeah, I make that concession every time I watch a historical movie. Like, I know this isn't exactly what happened. Do I go and, take to YouTube and write a 20-minute diatribe about, what's inaccurate in Saving Private Ryan or something? Like, no, I don't. Um, and at the end of the day, it is a video game. And at the end of the day, the kinds of people that get, just vehemently upset over those kinds of things are just people who get vehemently upset at things. But unfortunately, we live in an era, talking about the internet, going back to that whole era thing, um, where everybody loves to be offended at everything. And it's something that is compounded by the fact that that can be harnessed to be profitable. So talking about YouTube content creation, there are a number of creators out there who, base their entire product off of getting people upset and mad. Um, and when people are offended, they don't shut up. They just speak louder. You tell all of your friends. It's one of the things of why, if you make a video that's controversial, it's more liable to get views because somebody's going to be upset about it. They're going to talk to their friend about it. Whereas
Yeah.
if you put together a nice video that somebody enjoyed, they're going to watch it. They're going to be like, I like that. And that's the end of the conversation. They don't necessarily share it. They're just like, this was a good 6 minutes I spent on this, and maybe if they really enjoyed it, they'll share it with somebody. But it's so much easier to get people upset over something, and you don't have to be truthful about it. You can creatively use language. You can, obviously imagine a way to interpret something that nobody else has imagined before, nor was it intended to be interpreted that way by the person who made it. Um, and you do it for clicks and views, and we're seeing a lot of that with Cyberpunk uh, right now, where a lot of people are getting upset over things that I'm like, why are we asking this question? Like, this is not really a question that needs to be asked. Or, you're focusing on that when you should have been focused on, why haven't we seen any footage for last gen consoles?
Hmm.
And I think we've talked about that a little bit privately about how I feel like game journalism really set up Cyberpunk to fail, and they are gleefully, have their schedules full for the next month, and they're going to be picking apart all the ways in which, Cyberpunk failed, and it's going to continue to be profitable for them. Um, but where were they when they should have been doing their due diligence and saying, hey, we haven't seen any footage for last gen consoles. You're not handing out, review
Hmm.
codes for consoles. What is that about? Like, that should be a question that should be asked there, and perhaps publicly, so that the developer has an opportunity to respond to it. And I think that had they done that a little bit more, maybe the surprise for the people on the last gen potatoes wouldn't have been so as intense as it was. I don't know.
I mean, you never know also what happened in the background. Like maybe they still promised till the very end they would deliver, even though they couldn't, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of things with that. I haven't seen any uh, news media outlet complaining that PlayStation had 4 years to develop a better refund system after No Man's Sky. Um,
Okay.
PlayStation had 4 years to develop a better refund system, and they were like, "No, we're not going to do that." And as a direct result,
And they took the game out yet or not yet, right?
yes, they
Sony?
did. So, there's it's
It's so
it's
much
it's
politics
something
in this.
we
It's
could
so
talk
much
about for a long time.
yeah. It's kind of sad. Like I feel like I mean every game which is coming out is not finished, right? It is like that. There's no game
That
coming out in
is
this world which is
that is
finished, you
that
know?
is how it is. Games as a service, and
So
we saw that with Battlefield 5. You see that with Call of Duty in some ways. You see that with a lot of
oh
games
yeah.
now, that it's the way it is,
It's the way it's
and
the way. That is the way. You just have
that,
to
that is
accept it.
unfortunately the way.
I think maybe it's just an expectation hangover situation, you know, like we
I
just need to
I don't know. I feel like it's something that, it didn't used to be this way because it couldn't. Um, you couldn't have people downloading, updates to things that were, tens of gigabytes in size and that kind of stuff. And now we have the infrastructure to do that. So, it's a relationship with the games development industry where, they try to find a balance between it being broken enough to work and we'll fix it later. Can we get it out of the door? Um,
well, don't you think it would do you think it would change again? Like this I mean,
No, it's
kind of
it's not
culture.
going.
It's not going to, right?
It's not going to change because it's, in my opinion, it's more profitable. And as a result, it's not going to change because we're talking about capitalism and markets, and whatever is the most profitable way of doing things is how the majority of companies are going to do it, and that's
So the only
that's where
thing we
we're at.
can do is not buying games and wait till the first patch is out and then see where it goes.
That is how you do it. Unfortunately, content creators don't really have that
Yeah,
option.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a
I heard.
very timely, cutthroat kind of thing where it's just like, oh, that game is out. If I want to do content on it, I need it right now. Otherwise, I miss the boat, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know. Um,
How do you plan your content, by the way? Like, how does it go? Normally, like, let's say you want to do a video and then you start the process till the end. How does it look normally? That is a normal.
I'll script it out first, so I'll write everything. I will record the voiceover, edit the voiceover, bring that into so I do that on Adobe Audition, then I bring that into Premiere, and I will edit footage that I already have, or I will go and capture footage specifically
Hmm.
to work with that video. A lot of times I'll also be going out and looking for historical footage, so using websites like or archives.gov. Occasionally I'll use archive.org, but you have to get into like rights management and that kind of stuff there. If it's
Hmm.
on archives.gov, which is a wonderful resource for historical videos, you can find some very high quality MP4 videos on there that are in the public domain that you can use for content creation. The only catch is sometimes they're not super organized efficiently, and you kind of have to learn how to work that system, but once you figure it out, it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. I also have a film scanner that I can scan 8 millimeter film.
I saw that that is new, right? Like relatively new, right? You got this year, I think.
That I got a while ago, but it's
While ago?
something
Oh,
that
okay.
I kind of have it in my back pocket. If I really need something, I can go on YouTube and find a roll of 8 millimeter film that's in the public domain, and I can digitize it and use it however I'd like. Um, so
I think I have still like a material from my grandpa actually, and he was in the Second World War, I think. You know what? I would try and dig it out again. I think nobody saw it yet.
that
I
would
have
be
to
really,
find that.
really interesting.
I have to find that. We will make sure you will see that. I don't know if anything is on it, but we will figure that out. I think I have an 8 milli camera as well, but um
So you can mail it to me and I'll digitize it and send it back to you.
yeah, that's we will see. We will see. We will make that happen. I have to find the material first. um Let me ask you something else.
Sure.
Hmm. Something easy. What game would you recommend me to play right now? You're playing Fallout, right?
Yeah. So I'm playing Fallout 76 right now,
Is
which
that something you would
is,
recommend?
well, it's buggier than Cyberpunk.
Oh.
I'll just throw that out there. But it is a lot of fun. It's currently on the Xbox Game Pass, so it's free. You can go grab it. Um, I've been enjoying that quite a bit. Cyberpunk, I've been enjoying. Other games, because my life is either taken up with my full-time job or being a dad, or anything else, trying to do content creation. I don't actually get to play very many games. A lot of time, if I want to play a game, I'll end up watching it on YouTube. I'll watch, the people who upload the entire game, and I'll watch it so I can feel like I played it. I'm like, oh yeah, that was good. I didn't actually do it, but at least I feel like I'm included and I can talk about it.
Mhm.
Um, so Fallout 76 has been good. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed that. I'd also been talking about that topic of what Battlefield, should explore but won't. I've been playing the Mafia Definitive Edition, and it's excellent. So I would recommend that as well.
Mm,
But if there's any game, there's another game that I was looking at. I got an email about it the other day, and it's a nice little plug for them because they're an indie studio. I like some of those card games,
okay.
like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
go that route, there's a company out of Iceland, I think, that has put together a World War II card game, and it's called Cards, Kards,
Mm-hmm.
and it's available on PC. You can go check that out. You can spend money on like some additional packs, or you can unlock them eventually throughout playing the game. So it's not like a
Like
really
this here, right? Like in the
pay to
chat.
win thing. Yeah.
Just cuts. Okay.
Yes. And that game was a lot of fun, and I got really hooked into that for a little bit, and I kind of put it down for a little bit. And I got an email the other day that they just came out with a new expansion, so I'm like, oh, I got to go check that out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd recommend that one as well. That was a lot of fun.
All right. Yeah, but I feel you. I mean, I feel like I would like to play so much more, but I guess we just need to figure out how to hack time
Yeah,
and sleep.
yeah. I was talking about that. I'm like, if we could just move the Earth a little bit further away from the sun, so we get like 26-hour days, that would be perfect.
Oh yeah, I would be totally down for that. Like these extra 2 hours, you know. Oh,
I would
amazing.
just use it for sleep, but I'm saying like it would be great.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Me too. Just sleep. But it would be good if you could only hack it for you, so you have the extra 2 hours. You know, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing; just you have it. Nobody's disturbing you in these 2 hours.
I'm pretty sure everybody else would just sleep too during 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 those extra two
You
hours.
never know with kids, man. You never know with kids. Um. All right. If you could, if you could gift anyone a book this Christmas, like any person, not me, or maybe me, but I mean anyone else as well. If you could gift them a book, what book would that be?
Hmm.
Oh God, I think I should start drinking wine. I'm starting drinking wine now. I
What
waited too long.
what book would that be? I mentioned B.H. Little Heart earlier, um, and I really enjoyed his book called The Fall of France. Um, I believe that's what it's called. I'd have to double check that. It's been a while since I read it, but it was a wonderful read in terms of explaining
What was the name
why.
again? What was the title,
I
please?
think it's called The Fall of France. I would have to look it up.
The Fall of France. I will put it in the chat just so people
Yes,
doesn't want
but
to look it up.
um, it looks at all of kind of the background information on why France fared so poorly at the beginning of World War II. And it was a really interesting read to look at it and kind of pick apart all of the factors that kind of caused that. And there's a really interesting aspect in it when you get to the end of the book. It's just like why a durable peace has endured between France and Germany after World War II was that they both got to experience being winners and losers.
Okay,
And I just thought, wow, that's a really interesting way to look at that, and that's kind of stuck with me. Um,
I think
I'm
so,
not,
right?
I'm
No,
not sure.
you're not sure.
Let me look it up. I gotta Amazon this. Um,
Wait, give me 1 second. I'm right back. I don't leave you alone. You just 1 second. 1 second.
it's where my brain fails me, and I have to think about. Uh, I have to go look it up because I don't have enough space in my head for certain things. Oh no, it's Alistair Horn. That's who it is. Alistair Horn, To Lose a Battle, France, 1940. That's what it is. And he unfortunately passed away recently. So, um, but it was excellent, excellent book. You should definitely check it out. He's
All
somebody who
right.
has written quite a bit.
I hope you managed the show by yourself.
I did. I had the wrong author in my brain, so it's
I'm
from
so sorry.
Alistair Horn, and I put it in the chat.
That's perfect. I heard my kid around and I just wanted to make sure everything is all right, but everything is all right. You never know.
Yeah, never know.
Um, did you find it? Did you
I
find
did.
it?
Yeah,
It was the one one? Was it the one one?
it was To Lose the Battle, France, 1940. It's by Alistair Horn,
Okay.
who is another well-respected author who passed away recently, within the last couple of years, I think. But that book was fantastic. I would
Alistair.
easily recommend that to somebody.
Okay. Perfect. I would, I actually know a person who actually would love that. Mm.
For again, that's right. When it's quiet for more than 1 minute with kids, stuff is not okay. It's just like, what are you getting into? You know, it's quiet. What are you getting into? You turn the corner, they're juggling knives or something, you know. And where did you get that? Where did you find a chainsaw?
Exactly. Give me a number. Give me a number. Give me a number. Give me a number.
13.
Thank you. I think we had that one. Yeah, we had that one. Okay, I pick another one.
Oh,
Man, you're not good. You're not good at picking numbers.
I'm not a
Um.
numbers person. I'm a communication person. I don't do math.
Oh, okay, that's a good excuse. What's your recipe for Twitter?
My
And then on the
recipe for Twitter, it's
uh-huh,
like 90% memes and
the meme god.
like, yeah, 10% retweets of other people's memes is about what it comes down to. Um, you know, a lot of people are like, oh man, you just do memes all the time. And I'm like, it's easy. All you need is like basic Photoshop skills and a creative brain to, figure out
Yeah, but
something
that's the hard
to
part,
do.
having the creative brain. Like I look at your tweets and your pictures, I'm thinking like it's a perfect connection, but I would have never came up with that, Like the
Yeah.
burger, I was thinking like, okay, he's really hungry. Everything he thinks about is burger. Like the last 3 days of tweets, everything is about burger.
Yeah. Well, see, I look at it, I'm like, okay, there's this own little narrative about the hardline burger. It's like, I'm going to stretch this out for like a week and I'll figure out, how this is going to go or whatever. Um, but I like it. It's little things like that. I have little thoughts that pop in my brain. I'm like, oh, this would be good. You know, I always try to come up with some way to make somebody laugh, or to at least smile or look at it and feel like, all right, that was clever. I really enjoy that on my own when I'm on Twitter or the internet or something. Like if somebody can make me laugh or make my day a little bit better, I'm like, yeah, you're doing it right. Especially in 2020 when we invented the word doom scrolling. I'd like
Hmm.
to break that up a little bit. And the other thing, I think um, a lot of that direction on Twitter for me came from Battlefield 5 and specifically the community's frustration and disappointment. From the point of view of, I'll make memes about something. And as a content creator, you are, I guess, a leader in the community in some way. Um, and people like to know that other people in a position to talk to developers or to, play the game early have hopefully some kind of influence on the development process. Um, understand them, understand what their concerns are, their frustrations, so in some ways the memes do really well because not only are they funny, but they are an acknowledgement of a frustration, or
Hmm.
they're a public realization that hey, I'm going through that too, and that makes it so much easier to handle that kind of frustration or disappointment. It's one of the reasons that when you share experiences with somebody, you bond with them a lot deeper than you will with other people. So like when I was on the fire department, I had shared experiences with people there where it's just like, yeah, I trust that guy more than I trust you because I went into a burning house with that guy.
Hmm.
And it was an experience that we went through. Um, and so the memes in some way are a way to communicate that, hey, you're upset about that, I'm upset about that too, but let's laugh about it together, because that's really our only recourse
Yeah.
in some ways. So it works out well. um,
Do people think like you can actually change something within a game, like as a game changer? I mean, is that maybe an issue like for you that people are giving you the hate because they think you actually could change something even though you can't?
I think there are some people who think that, and certainly I have felt that from some people. Reading comments, you talk about death threats like earlier, like it
Yeah.
has happened. And I
Hmm.
think that, in the times that it has happened, it's just like, oh, you're responsible for this. I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm really not. But, you go ahead and
Yeah.
think that. Um, I think people vastly overstate the ability to influence things that we have.
Hmm.
We try very, very hard. And that's something I don't think a lot of people realize. I read hundreds of comments a day,
Hmm.
and I try to develop a general sense about what the community is thinking, what they are interested in, what their priorities are, so that I can relay that to developers. And
Yeah.
what the developers do with that is up to them.
Hmm.
There are certain things where I'm like, you really should give us this, because if you do, it's going to satisfy a large chunk of the population who really wants this aspect of the game,
Hmm.
or they want to, they want this kind of connection with the game. And sometimes it becomes a priority, other times it isn't. And something may be a priority, but they don't, the development time is prohibitive, whether that's from cost or the amount of time it would take for them to do that. I think a lot of people don't realize the complexity of the engines that are at work here. Um, Talking about Frostbite, right? It's not
Hmm.
like you're programming an 8-bit video game or something. Like, this is very complex stuff. Um, you
Can
know,
you
there,
break it down?
there's
Can you break it down actually? Because I think this is very interesting. Can you break this down on an example for Battlefield 5? Say anything which doesn't work till now and relate it to how complex it is actually to develop and make sure a game works. Because I think the main issue is that people don't see how many instances of, developers from, are working together to make this happen.
Well, and I don't know if I'm really qualified to answer that question. I can only speak to it from the point of view of being somebody who is not a developer, somebody who is, observing things maybe a little bit closer than some other people. But it does take time to do things, and you have priorities. It's resource management, right? Like, we have X amount of people who can work on this. We can add, one of two things in that time frame. Are we going to add, this one or that one? And the developers, the leadership, have to make that call and decide, okay, this is what we're going to do. And the bottom line is that you're never really going to make everybody happy.
Hmm.
And that's a realization that you have as you go through this process, both as, a developer, I assume, and also as somebody who, a content creator who gets asked to provide feedback during events and whatever. I try very hard, again, to communicate what I feel the community wants ahead of, what I want. And I think a lot of people think that we're there to serve what we want first. Like, we want the game to be a particular way because it's good for content creation or something like that. And I can tell you that this is the farthest thing from my mind. I don't
Hmm.
care.
Hmm.
Everybody else that I've talked to, they really don't care. There might be a special consideration where it's like, okay, if you want to stream this game, you should consider this.
Yeah.
But for somebody like me who just wants to make on-demand content, it's not a big deal. We don't even think
Yeah.
about it. Um,
And also
Sawtooth and
everything is content for you, so it doesn't even matter. I mean, just to so to speak, of course the game would be nice if it's good, but even if
mhm.
it's not good, what you need is content.
Yeah.
So
Sawtooth in the chat says, as a
yeah, I
community
wanted to
leader,
ask. Yeah.
do you feel you need to be neutral and try not to get involved with arguments about games? If so, how do you manage to do that? I mean, I'm not really somebody who gets into arguments about anything. Like I debate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I come from a family of people who never yelled. We just debate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at the same point, like you get, really focused on some things when you're doing feedback for stuff. Um, I'm trying to think of a good example of things. I think one thing that I was really kind of pushy on was that I really wanted us to be able to name our tanks in the game.
Mm-hmm. Ah,
That
yeah,
was
I remember.
an idea that I had, and I was just like, you want to create a personal connection with the
Mm-hmm.
player. That is a wonderful way to do that. It's also historically accurate. Um,
Yeah.
and it's something that is very visible from that time frame. When you look at pictures of World War II,
Mm-hmm.
it's an important aspect in what that looks like visually. And I was like, make it happen. Like, I don't care
Mm-hmm.
what you got to do, but it should be something that was in there. I continued to fight for that. Never
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things that, okay, that development time was probably spent doing something else that they judge to be more important. And,
Mm-hmm.
they get paid to make those calls,
Of
um,
course.
it's not,
You never know where you're on the list there.
yeah. And I mean, admittedly, there were probably other more important things on that list,
Mm-hmm.
than that. So, but we do fight for things, and I think a lot of the time we fight for our communities a lot more than we fight for ourselves. Especially with Battlefield 5 on some of the feedback. Um, we mirrored the community uh, disappointment, I think, in a lot of ways,
Mm.
and with the same passion that community has. Um, so it was a frustrating game to be a part of that conversation there. At the same point, I think I learned a lot about how these things work and how I can provide better feedback in the future. So don't regret it at all, but it's not necessarily an easy thing, and I think a lot of people really oversimplified that. Oh, you just go there, you play the game. Or it's weird how I can just go there and play the game but also be responsible for like every problem at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you've got people from every side of that conversation there. But yeah,
Did that answer your question, Thortus? Just give us a quick yes or no, just to make sure.
you did a little peace sign, so I think we're
Yeah, there
good.
was. Yeah, there was before. Oh. I mean, there have been a lot of hard discussions about several games. I feel people tend to want to pick your side. You always struggle with that. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, they want you to pick their side. Well, I mean, everybody has their ideas that, I was over here earlier talking about like, man, if Battlefield made this game, it would be awesome. Like, do
mm-hmm.
I think it'd be a game for everybody? No. Is it something that I want to happen? Yes. Am I trying to convince you of that? Yes. Um, but it's one of those things of like everybody is an amateur historian. Everybody is an amateur game developer. Everybody has like opinions and thoughts on things of just like, oh well, this would totally work, and we should definitely do that. And if you disagree with me, it's fisticuffs kind of stuff. And I think that's also representative of the world uh, that we live in, where people don't like to debate anymore. It's my way or the highway kind of scenario. And I think I think a good content creator who's giving feedback, really tries to be persuasive, uh, a persuasive representative of the community. And I think the vast majority of us kind of fall into that boat, where we look at ourselves as an extension of the community. We try and fight for that. I think a lot of people also give community managers a lot of trash that they don't deserve. They are equally there, not only to communicate from the developer, but to communicate to the developers.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever get a chance to talk to Jeff Braddock, Battlefield's North America community manager, he will tell you it
Okay.
is all about the fight for the user. He looks at
Mm-hmm.
it very much from the point of view of like, I'm here for you. I want to
Mm-hmm.
get things in the game that you think are important and they need to be in the game. He pressed very, very hard
I felt so
for,
sorry for him this year, to be honest. I felt
yeah,
like he got so much bullshit and
well, he did. And, I don't think a lot of people realize how much he pushed for the
community games.
community,
Mm-hmm.
the community games tools
Mm-hmm.
to be in there. And I think a large part that we got a little bit more than what was initially promised in that other update was because of him. And
Yeah.
I don't think he's gotten any credit for that, and I think he really should. Again, they are frequently abused and underappreciated. That is the motto of a community manager.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in some ways, content creators fall into that category as well.
Yeah, I really hope. What is he doing now, by the way? Is he giving up the position or is he
No,
um
as far as I know, he's
staying?
still doing that. He's been splitting his time a little bit with Rocket Arena, which is on
Ah, yeah,
the
what can
the hat up there.
the hat
But
out here? What happened? What happened?
no, my hat.
Ah,
That's
your
the
hat. My
arm.
hat. Ah, okay, what can
Um,
we
but no,
didn't realize.
he's still doing Battlefield stuff from what I know. So
That's good. I know what's just so quiet around him. I was wondering like what is he doing? Is he like, looking for something else or whatever? But I guess it's also the time right now with everything which is going on.
mhm.
I have one interesting question from Kat. As a teacher, do you see any correlation between video games and the behavior of people or students?
I think in some ways, yeah, attention spans are shorter. I don't know if I can blame that entirely on games as much as I can on the internet and the systems of the internet that we have, right? Like Instagram, Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
the ways in which we interact on there. Um, I think that is influencing how much of an attention span that people have. Certainly, it's what makes it difficult for me to like battle royale games. Like, I'm like, I don't want to wait. I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the classroom, that makes a big difference too. It also makes a difference in terms of keeping the attention of students. It's very difficult for students to pay attention to lectures. Whereas when I went to school, I went to college starting in 2014. Um, like, I was lucky if the teacher had a PowerPoint,
Mm-hmm.
they'd be writing stuff on the board with a piece of chalk. Um, it makes me sound so old. Like the kids outside are playing with a hoop and a stick. Um, Not quite that old, but uh, lucky if they're writing on the board with chalk or something. And now everything is focused on like, okay, we need to have videos put together or media and have all of this stuff queued up and ready to go because the younger generations are so much more media literate than we were. Um, and I say media literate more so in the sense of like they absorb things that way. Um, they respond much more to audio or they respond much more to visuals. And one thing that I particularly like is just mixing things up in the classroom. So I'll talk for a little bit and we'll watch a short video, or I'll interject. I'll splice
Mm-hmm.
in a clip from a movie or television show that relates to what it is I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Or maybe we'll watch a video from a YouTube content creator, or something like that. But you do kind of get this eclectic nibbling kind of, we're pulling stuff from all these different places. And you kind of have to do it if you want to be successful because that's their media ecosystem in which they live.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they experience things in their life right now. So you're going to have a better chance at getting them to remember things and listening to you if you kind of approach them on the terms that they're used to, right? So
So, I was thinking about two questions right now. That was not good.
I know most of the questions I answer,
Uh,
I have like this really long-winded answer about something.
mm.
My wife gives me,
Yeah, it always brings me like three other questions in my mind, like,
yeah,
yeah. And
my
then it confused me
my
at the
my
end.
wife gives me lots of side eye when she asks me a question, and then I'm like, so, and she's like, no, whatever you were gonna say, it's gonna be like a ten
Cut it
minute
down.
answer. Like, just give me the basic thing of what I need to know. And I'm like, but you can't appreciate that without the background info. So I need to provide
Uh,
that first, then lead into this, and then go to that, and then we arrive at the answer to your question. I swear I'm not that condescending when I talk to her, but yeah.
no, I feel her. I feel her. um, so no, I still don't know what I wanted to ask. I just go with the next number, whatever. We had that. We had that. We talked about mostly all of it without even asking the question. How did COVID affected your life?
COVID has affected my life, at least from the point of view of my regular full-time job, in a lot of ways, and that kind of bleeds into content creation, because I can't really leave the house. I'm somebody who gets my train of thought gets derailed rather easily by interruptions. Yeah. So, I'll be mid thought and all of a sudden there's a child pounding on the door and I'm like, what was I talking about? I have to, go back and figure that out. But there were some significant changes at the university because, I had prepped the semester as an in-class semester. Then that changed. Um, and then it changed to like a hybrid class where we met in class one day a week to being online the other day, and then it went to full online. So it's just like you're trying to I don't even know of like a good analogy for that, like lasso a tornado or something. Like you just can't do it. So everything has been really really crazy from that point of view. And that's made my life a little bit more difficult, and certainly has made content creation a little bit more difficult, which is why you've kind of seen, I think, a little bit of a downturn in the frequency of content, because it's hard to get everything put together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you like, can you name us like some do's and don'ts as a content creator, like in
Ooh,
general?
do's and don'ts as a content creator.
Hmm.
All right, that is a fun question. So do's and don'ts. So I think it's very important if you plan to be a content creator that you need to learn how to handle criticism. And I don't mean constructive criticism. I mean absolutely
Or drink
rude,
more wine?
yeah, rude, ridiculous, uh, asinine, personal, attacking kind of criticism. You have to develop a thick skin. And I think for me, uh, I am somebody who is generally very honest with people. My Twitter persona may be a little bit more sarcastic or snarky than I am in real life. But when I talk to you, it's always going to be genuine. And it was very difficult for me starting in content creation to understand that other people aren't wired that way, and to understand that the internet provides a platform for people to say whatever they want without any kind of recourse. It makes it very easy to say very hurtful, mean things. And over time, I've learned to just not care. But I think in some ways that's also affected me at my core as a person. I'm not as compassionate as I once was. So I had to, I don't want to say bury a part of me, but it is something that you had to let go if you wanted to be able to do this. So for content creation, don't take things personally. Do learn to sort through criticism and find the valid ones. Find the valid ones, hold on to those, throw everything else away. Don't let what somebody said live rent free in your head for a week, right? You have to be able to rationalize that, throw it away, and, focus on what's positive, what's important, what can be improved, what's reasonable uh, about that. So I think that that's really, really important as a content creator. It's also something that really cannot be overstated. I think a lot of people, you talk about content creation, it's always about how do I make this? How do I do that? It's never about the after. After you do that, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with the feedback that you get? So you really need to develop a way in which to handle that that is healthy. You don't want to. I can't tell you how many times I see people handling that kind of feedback in an unhealthy way. I think it's a lot more common than people realize. And so you want to be able to handle that. That's something that's important. Okay. Trying to think of what else here. Do have confidence in what you're doing. I think that's an important factor in all of that as well. Do things that you truly believe in. If you're going to make a video about something, I don't make videos just for the sake of making videos. I make a video because I feel a particular way about something, or I feel
Mm-hmm.
strongly about something. Like I'm prepared to fight you on whatever it is that I'm going to make a video about. And sometimes in the comments, I will do that. But, um, make things that you're passionate about. It's something that if somebody is watching your videos, they're going to be able to tell if you care or don't care. If you're genuinely interested in something, that's why I haven't really done Warzone videos. Like I'm not really interested in battle royales. Could I do it? Would the videos probably get quite a bit of views? Would it be lucrative? Would I gain more subscribers? Absolutely. But I'm not passionate about it. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't care.
Yeah.
I care a little bit, but not enough to go and make something
Mm-hmm.
about it. So you want to be passionate in what you do.
Are you kind of
Um,
waiting for Battlefield 6 right now?
I am, I've really been hungry and looking around and saying, what can I make content on?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some potential with cyberpunk, but you also have to look at it from the point of view of, do understand that your audience has preconceptions of what your channel is about.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not you view your channel as a certain thing, your audience might have a totally different opinion.
Mm-hmm. That's why you
You
already
know,
made the second channel, right? The
yeah,
history channel.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
something that it's like I looked at, like, would they like that? Probably. Does it really suit what the channel is about? No. And I had to really think that through. Am I going to make a separate channel for that? Or am I going to, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I came to the conclusion it'd be better off as a second channel.
Can you name out the channel quick here for the guys? Just
Uh,
where do they find the second channel?
let me see if I
Pick.
can find the link to it. But it is called Peculiar, and it's just little interesting things
I can put it in
that
the
I've come across and that I want to uh, explore in a little bit more depth. And they're all videos that, from the get-go, they're designed to be under 5 minutes. There's only 3 videos up there right now. Like I said, things have been kind of crazy with work, and so I haven't had as much free time as I maybe would have liked to have had with that. So, I don't depend on this for income full time. So it gets done when I have time to do it. But other do's and don'ts,
Did you find the channel link? Why can't I see it right now? Because I'm not logged in. Can you send it to me quick on Discord?
I put it in the stream chat. So it
Oh, you
should be
put
in
it
the
in
stream
there?
chat. Yeah.
No, I think you put a link in there. Mm,
It works for me. I don't know.
okay, it doesn't for me. No, all they see is
That's not in there.
yeah, perfect. Okay,
There we go.
Joe
Yeah.
did it. Joe did it. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Joe.
Joe.
Behind the scenes master.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, Joe here, the master in the background, guys. Good, say hi. Be nice. Without him, nothing is working here.
Joe, you get a cookie. That's what somebody said.
Joe, get a cookie. Um, all right. I had something. Oh yes, I love this. I have a good question.
Sure.
If you could put up a billboard up, where would it be and what would you write on it? A giant billboard. Everyone
That's
can
an
see it. Not a
that's
small
an
one.
that's an interesting question. I don't know. I really don't know what I would put on that. I don't know. Billboards aren't really my thing. I like to be really crafty about stuff. I was trying to
What would
think
you
about
what would you
be-
use?
well, so I've had this idea for a while, and I just think it'd be really, really neat to put together, because I like the idea of history and having that be easily available to people, and compelling and interesting and accessible. I think education should be really, really accessible. I know education's been kind of a theme throughout this, but I've been working on in my spare time trying to come up with a template for like a pop-up uh, museum in a way, if that sounds like
Mm-hmm.
something. Um, and just have it be accessible online. Anybody can go and print it out, laminate it and place it someplace. So, kind of glorify little mini
You mean like
displays.
this sign, like a pop-up
Yeah.
museum, like in, and you
Just
can just,
like you can just download the file, print it out, laminate it, and put it somewhere. And like that would have my little logo on it, but you'd be able to
mm-hmm.
learn about, like the Battle of the Bulge, or something interesting from World War II, or the history of the Medal of Honor or something like that. And they just be little things that, maybe you work in a library and you want a quick something that you can throw up for the time
Collect them
period.
all.
Yeah. That kind of stuff. And, maybe that has a little bit of a promotional blurb on there
Mm-hmm.
about the YouTube channel. Like I'd much rather do that than come up with like a big billboard. Like I
Well,
want
what's
to,
more, the idea was more about like, what is the one thing you would want to tell humanity, I guess, This was more about this, like, what is the one message you want to send out there to humanity? And that's why I had the
I'm pretty
visual
sure it would
thing,
just say, don't be
you
a
know,
dick. Like
that's totally enough.
that's all it would say.
So
I think people need to spend less time thinking about themselves and more time thinking about other people.
this is a good message for the day, guys. Don't be dicks and you're fine. um, let's see. Let's see. I think with that here,
We got
we,
we
we
got 10 more
crossed
minutes.
paths. Yeah, no, we'll find something else. I just wanted to have a look quick if anything was left over here, but we switched so many times topics. The kind of we had the games. Were there any content creators like before you started which impacted you, like had an impact on you?
Yeah. So actually, and I kick myself for this. Back in about 2009, I did a video about Brothers in Arms,
Mm-hmm.
and it got like 300,000 views. And I did it as part of a channel that some of my friends from Xbox were on there, and we kind of had a little YouTube channel. I put this video together and I just like threw it out there. I got 300,000 views. It wasn't monetized or anything. I didn't really think about it, but I'm like, oh man, if I had started YouTube then instead of 2016, man, things would be different.
Mm.
But like around that time period, um, I actually had watched a lot of Jack Frag's videos. And I appreciated the honesty and the genuine nature of his interactions on things. He could put together a logical argument, or explain something, or just, he had the attitude of like, you talk to him, or you'd listen to him and you're like, I feel like that guy could be my friend, and
Mm-hmm.
like I'd be friends with that guy.
Yeah,
And like
I know what you
ironically
mean.
now, whenever we go to an event or something, I'm like, hey Jack, and he's like, hey,
Mm.
how's the
Hey,
kid?
friend.
Yeah, like, and that's wild to me. Like that's
Mhm.
not anything that I ever thought would would happen. Um, so yeah.
Is there any story you'd like to share about the meetings you had through the Game Changer program?
Um, I have to think about like what I'm allowed to talk about or whatever. Um,
I know. That's why I thought like I just keep it open.
you
What is this? What is something
know,
you can't talk about?
they're generally very wonderful things from the point of view of like
Bergen.
you get to hang out with some really cool people. I can't think of anybody on the Game Changer program or anybody at some event where I'm like, wow, I really don't like that guy.
Hmm.
You know, they're enjoyable things. You really get to hang out with like-minded people and play video games with them.
Hmm.
Interact with them. It's a lot of fun. There've been some interesting, you know, uh, events and things. Sometimes travel arrangements get crazy, or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, I had one I had one instance on the very first, and I don't know if I'll ever forget this, on the very first Game Changer event that I ever got to go to, um, was for the They Shall Not Pass DLC. And, Jeff Braddock had, sent me an email. We talked a little bit. And so I was planning to go out there. And so we had my tickets all lined up at this point. I lived in Little Rock, and I was going to fly out of Little Rock, go Little Rock to Colorado, and then out to California. And um, I get to the airport, and they're like, "Your flight to Denver has been canceled because the winds are really bad, and we're not going to be able to do this." I'm just like, "Oh man, I really want to go to this. What are they going to, like,
Yeah.
what's going to happen with this?" And so I called Jeff, and I'm like, "Jeff, I don't know what to do. This is what
Let's
they're
meet
telling me."
shoppers.
And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this, and he's like, stop. We will get you here. If I have to send the Eagles from Lord of the Rings to carry you out to, California, we will get you here, and it was just a really funny uh, moment to have that and to talk with Jeff about it. And that was one of my real first interactions with him. And I'm like, I like this guy. He seems he seems pretty cool. And of course, things worked out just fine. I wound up going like a different route. They routed me through Texas, and I went that way. Um, and I got there, and it was a blast. That was wonderful. That was the first event there. Um, but that was great. There's a few other stories here and there about interesting things. The Battlefield 5 launch party, there's the infamous Poke Bowls, which if you ask any of the game changers who was there, they'll just say, "I'm not going to talk about that. I don't want to talk about it." But
Makes us want to talk about that.
yeah, no, it's just most of the
Oh,
time the food is good, and that was one time that it was not.
okay,
It
okay.
was
I see. I see. It ended up in a disaster. There's another question in here. Cup of Joe, and it's funny because Kat had the same question. Do your students know about your being a content creator or content creation?
A
Um,
lot of them do. Um, so, and that's partially my fault because I start every first class with, like, here are my qualifications for teaching you,
mhm.
which basically translates to, this is why you should listen to me and get
Yeah,
off of
yeah,
your phone,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Because also me being younger, it can be sometimes difficult for students to take you seriously.
Mhm.
Um, so, I often lead with that. I'm like, this is what I do in my spare time where I'm not
Does it
teaching
help
them.
you getting more attention from them?
I think it does,
Hmm.
certainly, especially for a lot of the students who have an interest in doing that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
They're excited about the fact that they can ask,
Yeah.
YouTube related or streaming related questions or whatever, whatever have you, and they know that they're going to get a decent answer out of it, not just, well, this is maybe what somebody would do. I'm like, no, this is how it works, and explaining that out there. Um, but most of them, uh, you know, know that. Actually, on Reddit, the one video that talked about the Arecibo dish. being similar to Rogue Transmission in Battlefield 4, somebody on Reddit was like, "Oh, it's so weird to see my old college professor on YouTube
Old.
uh, on Reddit," and they were
Yeah.
talking about it, and they didn't assume that I would ever see it, and it's like, "Oh, he was a gamer cringe lord back then," and I commented on it. I'm still a gamer cringe lord, but it was a fun little moment there for that.
That's
But
amazing.
most of them do know. Um, I don't, I think, share the channel name with them unless they specifically, want to know. Just because there are
Yeah,
things
I
with
mean,
like
this is word to word, right? I mean, word to
privacy and
mouth. They
yeah,
probably know anyways, right? I mean,
yeah.
I
It
mean, your
depends.
face is out there too.
Yeah,
It's
but
yeah,
it doesn't appear on videos all that often. So
right. Well, I mean, it's definitely comes handy, I guess. You have a better connection to them probably as any other professor, just because you know what you're doing, and it probably helps you a lot to connect to them because of it. Um, you know what? We play one more numbers game here. Chet, did you have a question? Did I see anything or didn't see anything? There was nothing, right? Okay, you can't see that? Oh
I
wait.
see.
Tribe
Tribe
of
of Mentors.
Tribe of Mentors by Timothy Ferris. You just give me a number and whatever question comes up in there, you take it.
Okay.
Any
Uh,
so 500, any number.
uh, 473.
How
I'm
is
thinking for it.
failure?
I'm thinking.
Oh, what? No, you can stop thinking. I just pick here. There are actually 3 questions in this page. Shall I pick or do you want to pick? Okay, between 1 and 3. Pick.
1.
Perfect. Okay,